My name is Greta Burroughs, actually birth given Margareta, but better known as Greta Burroughs, and I have been Ellis, Frazier, and Burroughs at Air Reserve Personnel Center, ARPC. But I did not start my career with ARPC. I started my career with Wright-Patterson Air Force Base after leaving Central State University, where I went to nursing school. But then I transferred, this is home, and I transferred back and went to York Street. I'm sort of like an implant with York Street because I was only there about 5 months before the transition of going to Laurie. But I went there as a clerk typist, and as Dorsey said about the hanging of the wires from the ceiling, those big, huge, monstrous desks that were made of steel that you didn't think could break. I remember a couple major things at York Street, besides the camaraderie, is that people could smoke at their desk, and they had these ashtrays. And I also remember going out on the dock for breaks and for fresh air. I love that. And then there was this little thing that someone said, make sure I talk about, a place where people used to go to let their hair down, especially the military and certain civilians. Around the corner, there was a little bar called Smitty's. It just was torn down about 8 months ago. It was a recreational water hole, as you call it. People would disappear from the building, and they would know that they were over at Smitty's having a cold beer or having a hot link or taking an extended lunchtime. But it was always hilarious when you would hear the story, oh, I know where they are, give me 15 minutes. They would go get them, especially right after lunchtime. But the camaraderie was great. The people were enjoyable to work with. It was strange for me. I'd never worked in a warehouse building before. Large, numerous amount of people. We worked with Accounting and Finance Center. They were extremely across the hall from us, or the driveway. The two buildings faced east and west, and we were facing each other north and south. It was just a good thing, and as Linda said earlier, when it was time to go on KIMM, everybody knew because we would roll out in the cars and we carpooled, and that's the only way you got in and out. So York Street had some fun memories for me, as well as the tasking that I had, because I came in, I had done one thing and changed my career field to do something different. The process of going to Laurie was interesting because it was a regular base at the time, and the building was built from the ground up. And the excitement of going to a new location was in everybody's ears and face. You could see it, they were excited. It was a huge 3-story building, lots of space, even though we still had those big iron desks that looked like they would never go away. But eventually we got modular furniture. And that was exciting because it took you away from people, but it also gave you more privacy, gave you a little bit more independency. And my job changed. I became a personnel specialist, and I work with the records now. At York Street, I work with the records mainly because I was typing labels or correcting information or whatever. And I became a personnelist with the records management, and actually I was an administrative assistant. I really wasn't a file clerk, but I worked in the area, which most people entered into ARPC as a file clerk, regardless military or civilian, educated or not. And it was exciting. I did that, and it was fun. I remember the guys taking rubber bands. We used them so much, and they would make balls out of them, wrap them in and twining to make a ball so they could throw back and forth across the floor. And at the York Street location, the way our records were filed, we have a uniqueness that we do not file by alpha. We file by numerical sand. And so at York Street, it was a lot of stacks of the way we were filing, and tabs for you to identify your work when you saw it, and you had a certain terminal digit that we called TD. And so everybody had a TD to be accountable for their space of work. Well, a large amount of documents like this to be given to you to file for a day was a lot of work, standing on your feet for about 6.5 hours a day. And normally 7 to 3:30 was your work of time at work. And so at Laurie, it changed a little, as Linda said earlier, that we became a little bit more sophisticated. We then acquired telephones on our desk. We had IBM selective typewriters, and I also worked in the word processing area, which became more computerized with doing this point credit thing called 526s. I used to hate them with a passion. Between 526s and per strand end strengths were my two jobs that I hated the most out of everything that I've done for the Air Force. Everything else was great, but those two taskings were always tedious because if you made a mistake, you'd have to start all over again. And per strands, if you didn't gain strength correctly, it rejected. And I used to hate not having a perfect record. So, I mean, our Air Force people depended upon us doing a good job and a correct job. But at Laurie, transition began to come for us humongously. We had all this paper. We had probably about 600,000 physical records, would be anywhere from 1 to 5 inches thick of an individual's record. It depended upon how long he or she participated in the military, especially in the Air Force. And we held on the records, what we call X6 records, X regular, until a person was eligible to draw pay at age 60. So we had this record. They've done all this good time, and they had this record at least 20 to 25 years till they became eligible at age 60 to retire and draw good pay. So we had to manage all that paper constantly. And then in the process, we started microfilming the paper, manually microfilming it, like a teeny 16 by 6 milligram of film, like a Kodak film. We put it on and mounted it on a Mylar, which was a holding cell, which now it was the form of the record. So you had the master record on Mylar, which was being done in microfilm, we called microfiche later on, and then we had a physical field record, which regulation required if a member participated that you also kept those documents, which duplicated some of the documents on the master record. In the process, this was overwhelming and most demanding. But once we started doing microfiche, it eliminated a lot of paper, but it didn't ever seem to go away. It eventually did, and we migrated into another phase, and we became more sophisticated as equipment and time enhanced. And as I grew with the Air Reserve Personnel Center as a personnelist, I became a lead, then I became a first line, then I became a branch chief, and I made it all the way to a division. And now I do contracting, and matter of fact, manage contracts for the government in the same manner of records management. And Air Reserve Personnel Center has, in 40 years, has had a tremendous migration of change, positively, with great people that I worked with. I love the people. When I do retire, that will be what I will miss the most, is the people. Now, the magnificent change for the new location at Buckley, very different. I like the building, but it's too small. I personally think it's too small. I do not like the opportunity of not having some more privacy, not enough conference rooms. I thought we would have that individual style of training that if you took your people out of your section, you could talk to them without disturbing everyone. So we're still adjusting to that, but it's a good way to see everybody. You can walk down the aisles and share day to day. You can miss somebody in a couple of days, where before somebody could be out for weeks and you didn't know they weren't there because you were kind of out in a closed area. But the building's a beautiful building. We've had good commanders. One of my two favorite commanders was Joseph Ramsey, who was a full-bird colonel, and General Pottinger. He was a people's person, both of them. They got out on the floor. and they knew their people. I mean, really knew their people. They knew their names, and not just in uniform. They knew civilians and military. And if they couldn't fix it, they'd be honest and tell you, our hands are tied, but this is what we're going to try to do. And I love the honesty, and I love the loyalty that they had to their people. I think that is says a lot about being able to do a good job, having great commanders, and care about change, which is positive. Um, I liked my job. I love my job. I like the people I work with. Some people used to say they were afraid of me because I am a very direct and open person. If it's something we need to do, we have to get it done. The one thing that ARPC doesn't ever have to worry about is we won't look like St. Louis, which had, I thought our 7 feet high of records was tall. St. Louis had 10 feet. Now they're moved to a new building at 1 Archive Street, and I think it's 12 feet high, and it's like a cave. It's humongous. So at least now with our modern equipment and technology, we have, 21st century, full circle, scan documents in, you can pull it off through the computer. You only have to print what you really have to have. You can look at it on the computer, do your calculations, or answer customers' questions. All those things have just enhanced and improved, and I am sure the way the people work here at ARPC, that will even be greater in the next 40 years. But I won't be here to see that. Thank you.